They locked her out, but why was she being recorded?
I sent my daughter somewhere safe and they locked her out. Let that sink in for a second. Picture this rain hitting so hard it stings your skin. The kind that soaks through shoes in seconds. Streetlights flickering. A quiet suburban street that suddenly feels wrong. And there's a 9-year-old girl standing on a porch. My daughter, Lila Russell. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. She's knocking, not softly either. Both fists, fast, desperate. She's calling out, "Grandma, Grandpa, it's me!" The door opens, just a crack at first, then wider, and there they are, my parents. They look straight at her. No confusion, no panic, no "what are you doing here?" Just a pause, a decision. And then they shut the door and lock it right in her face. Now, here's the part that's harder to explain. Inside that house, my sister Claire, her husband, their son, warm, dry, safe. But my daughter, left outside like she didn't belong. My name is Elena Russell. I'm 29 years old. I work night shifts as a nurse. Long hours, high pressure, the kind of job where you don't get to hesitate. You act, or people suffer. That night, I had 12 minutes to act. Something had already gone wrong bad enough that I couldn't stay home, couldn't bring Lila with me, and couldn't call the police fast enough to fix it. So I made what I thought was the safest decision available. I sent her to my parents, and then my phone lit up. A message. Simple, short, quiet. "Mom, they won't let me in." Have you ever stared at a message like that and felt your entire body go cold? Because I did. My thumb hovered over the screen. Type something, call her, fix it. That's what any normal parent would do, right? But I didn't. I watched the typing bubble appear, disappear, and then I made a choice. A worse one. Because what you don't know yet, what they didn't know, is that I wasn't just reacting that night. I had been preparing for months. And 11 days later, they walked into my hospital, panicking, demanding answers, begging for help. And this time, I didn't hesitate. I decided who got saved. But before you judge me, ask yourself this. What kind of family looks at a child in the rain and decides she's not their problem? Because that night, it wasn't just about a locked door. It was about proving something I already suspected. And once I had proof, there was no going back. My parents didn't suddenly become cruel. They were always selective about who deserved protection. You ever grow up in a house that looked perfect but felt conditional? That was the Russell house. Fresh paint every few years, lawn trimmed every Sunday, family dinners like clockwork. From the outside, it was stability, reliability, safety. Inside, everything had rankings, and I wasn't at the top. My younger sister, Claire Russell, 34, never left. She built her life right there inside my parents' orbit. Married, had a son, followed every expectation like it was written for her. She was the right kind of daughter. I was the one who moved out at 19, got pregnant at 20, and never quite fit back into their version of what life should look like. They never said it directly. But you don't need words when it shows up in everything else. And Lila, she felt it too. Not an obvious cruelty. That would have been easier to confront. No, this was quieter, subtle, smaller birthday gifts compared to her cousin. My mom correcting how she spoke, how she sat, how she laughed. My dad barely engaging, like she was background noise. They'd still say, "We love her." But it always came with invisible conditions. 3 months before that night, something shifted. At first, it was small things I couldn't quite explain. Conversations that stopped when I walked into a room. Glances between my parents and Claire that felt loaded. Then came the moment that stuck. I was in the kitchen grabbing a glass of water. They didn't know I was there. My mom said quietly, "We can't afford another liability." And then she looked straight at Lila. That word didn't leave me. Liability, not responsibility, not family. A liability. I didn't confront her. I didn't argue. I started watching, paying attention, documenting things I couldn't yet prove but couldn't ignore either. Because something underneath all of it felt off. Financial stress, control issues, something about how resources were being divided, and who they thought deserved them. Then came that night, the one that forced everything into motion. A man I had reported weeks earlier, someone unstable, unpredictable, showed up near my apartment again. Closer this time, too close. The police response was delayed, my building manager wasn't answering, and I had minutes, not hours, to decide what to do. So I made the call. "Mom, I need you to let Lila stay, just for tonight." There was a pause, a long one. Then she said, "Fine." Flat, reluctant, like I was asking for something unreasonable, but I didn't have another option. So I dropped Lila off 2 streets away, told her to walk the rest. "Grandma's waiting," I said. I lied. And then my phone buzzed. One message. "Mom, they won't let me in." Here's the part I haven't told you yet. I already knew there was a chance they wouldn't. What I didn't expect was how perfectly they would prove it. I didn't ignore my daughter. I was watching. That's the part people get wrong when they hear this story. They think I froze, that I hesitated, that I failed her in that moment. But the truth? I saw everything. The second Lila's message came through, "Mom, they won't let me in. I didn't open my contacts." I opened an app, a live feed. The camera was small, clipped inside the lining of her jacket, something I'd added weeks earlier after that man first showed up near our building. At the time, it felt paranoid. That night, it became everything. The screen flickered to life. And there she was. My 9-year-old standing under that dim porch light, soaked, knocking again. "Grandma, it's me. Please open the door." Her voice wasn't panicked. Not yet. Just confused. I watched the door open. Slow. Deliberate. My mother, Diane Russell, 62, stood there. She didn't look surprised. That's important. No. What's going on? No urgency. No concern. Just evaluation. Like she was deciding something in real time. Behind her, through the gap, I could see the living room. Lights on, TV playing, Claire sitting on the couch, her husband beside her, their son on the floor with a tablet. Comfortable, safe. And then my mother said it. Clear, calm, controlled. "Go back to your mother. This isn't our responsibility." Have you ever heard something that instantly confirms your worst suspicion? That was it. No hesitation, no attempt to help, just rejection. And then she closed the door, locked it right in front of her. Lila didn't scream, didn't cry. She just stood there for a second, like her brain was trying to process what just happened. Then slowly, she sat down on the step, pulled her knees in, waited. I didn't call her. I didn't text back. Because at that exact moment, I called someone else. Dr. Marcus Hale, 41, ER physician, someone I trusted. "Marcus," I said, "I need you to initiate the protocol." There was a pause on his end. Then, "You're sure?" I looked at the screen, at my daughter sitting outside that locked door. "Yes," I said, "I'm sure." Because this wasn't just about that night. This was about a pattern, a system, a quiet, ongoing decision my parents had been making about who mattered, and who didn't. And now I had it recorded, time-stamped, unarguable. Within 15 minutes, Lila was picked up safely. She never knew I was watching, never knew how close I was the entire time. But what my parents didn't know, that moment, those 8 minutes on that porch, triggered something much bigger than they could imagine. Legal reviews, medical authority shifts, financial scrutiny, things already set in motion, just waiting for confirmation. And they gave it to me perfectly. So when they walked into my hospital 11 days later, panicked, desperate, out of options, they weren't just looking for help. They were walking straight into the consequences of their own decision. They thought they got to decide who mattered until the moment they needed me. Day 11. It was just past 2 a.m. in the ER, quiet in that eerie, temporary way hospitals sometimes get. Machines humming, distant footsteps, controlled chaos waiting to break loose. And then it did. The door slammed open. My mother rushed in first, Diane Russell, her composure gone, replaced with raw panic. My sister Claire right behind her, already crying, barely able to speak. And then I saw him, my father, Harold Russell, 65, barely standing, gray, sweating, disoriented. The moment I saw his condition, I knew exactly what was happening. And more importantly, what it would require. Elena, my mother shouted, spotting me across the room like I was the only solid thing left in her world. You have to help him, please. Help him. Just like that. No hesitation now. No conditions. My father looked at me, his expression cracking with relief. Elena, he said weakly, I need you. I didn't move, didn't rush forward, didn't call a team. I just stood there and looked at them the same way they looked at Lila. Detached, measured. Claire stepped in, her voice breaking. We didn't know it was serious. We thought, I cut her off. You thought what? I asked quietly. Silence. Heavy, suffocating. Behind me, I heard footsteps. Dr. Marcus Hale stepped to my side, clipboard in hand, expression steady. This was the moment. The one everything had been building toward. 3 months earlier, my father had signed updated medical documents. He barely read them. He trusted me. That was his first mistake. The update included a conditional medical proxy clause, temporary, specific, activated only under one circumstance. Documented evidence of immediate family neglect toward a dependent minor under foreseeable risk. That night, Lila on the porch, the refusal, the locked door. It met every condition perfectly. Marcus spoke calm and clinical. Based on the documentation submitted, medical decision-making authority has been transferred to Elena Russell, effective immediately. My mother blinked, confused. What does that mean? I answered, it means you don't get to decide anything anymore. My father's face changed. Not just fear, realization. Because suddenly, the man who decided who was worth helping was completely dependent on the person he had quietly dismissed for years. And now, everything he needed, treatment, approval, access, went through me. I stepped closer, finally, looked him in the eyes, and for the first time, he didn't look like the one in control. And that's when they realized they had already lost. So here's the truth, the part they didn't see coming. Everything that happened in that ER wasn't emotional. It was procedural, structured, already decided long before they walked through those doors. My father's condition required immediate enrollment into a specialized treatment program, one with limited access, strict approvals, and very specific oversight. And I had that authority not by accident, by design. 3 months earlier, when I noticed the patterns, the favoritism, the comments, the way Lila was being quietly pushed aside, I stopped thinking like a daughter. I started thinking like a professional, like someone who understood systems, leverage, documentation. So when my father asked me to review his medical paperwork, something routine, something he barely paid attention to, I added a conditional clause. Legal, ethical, fully valid, but precise. If immediate family demonstrated documented neglect toward a minor in a foreseeable risk situation, decision-making authority would shift to me, and that night, they fulfilled every requirement. On camera, with audio, with timestamps, no interpretation needed. Back in the ER, my mother started crying first. Not subtle tears either, full panic. We didn't know she was in danger, she said, her voice shaking. You're overreacting, Elena. She was fine. Was she? I asked. Silence. Claire tried next. She could have gone somewhere else, she said quickly. You put her there. And that was the moment everything settled for me. Clear. Final. She did go somewhere else, I said. They looked confused. She went somewhere better. I approved my father's treatment. I didn't hesitate because this was never about revenge. It was about control and boundaries. But approval didn't mean access or forgiveness or things going back to the way they were. Legally, everything shifted. My parents lost financial flexibility tied to shared assets I had partial oversight of. Claire and her family were forced to relocate within 2 months due to restructuring, and a formal report of neglect was documented permanently attached to their records. Socially, people didn't confront them, but word spread quietly, and it stayed. Personally, they tried to reach out. Apologies, explanations, justifications. I didn't respond, not once. Weeks later, Lila and I sat in our new apartment. It wasn't big, it wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Quiet, safe, ours. She looked at me one night and asked, why didn't they let me in? I could have told her everything, the patterns, the proof, the plan, but I didn't. I just said, because they didn't understand how important you are. She thought about it, then nodded, accepted it, moved on in the way only kids can. And me? I stopped waiting for that door to open. Because now I understood something they never did. Family isn't who lets you in, it's who would never close the door in the first place.
So tell me, was this protection or a plan waiting to happen?